Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the ANC's December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalan. Here's what's making headlines today. It's all systems go for the ANC's national conference in December. Officials say plans are in place to ensure that the highly anticipated conference goes ahead without a glitch. ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize says the party should unite behind whoever wins in December. The presidential candidate says the ANC should elect an inclusive leadership. And ANC Chief Whip Jackson Mthembu says President Jacob Zuma should step down after December. Mthembu led the ANC caucus against the motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma. It's all systems go for the much-anticipated ANC National Conference in December. The party says 90% of the branch general meetings where nominations are made have been completed. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe says the extension was granted to give all members in good standing an opportunity to nominate their preferred candidates. Mantashe says there's no reason to doubt that the elective conference will go ahead as planned. This is amid fears that disputes might lead to court challenges derailing the conference. The jury is now out on the ANC conference going ahead without a glitch, given the court cases challenging the legitimacy of ANC structures.
Any prediction of a conference of the ANC not sitting, I'm sure everybody is now understand that there is no way that will not sit. Even if we can close today and say no further BGMs, that conference is sitting. 16th to the 20th of December. We close BGM, we said no, let's allow a week for a mop-up, we call it a mop-up. Mugabe we call extension. We're over 90, if we wanted we would just close because we're qualified for the conference, we exceeded the threshold by 20%. We still want that remaining part of the 10% to get further branches to the conference of the ANC so that everybody participates in the conference of the ANC. That's where we are, and therefore we're quite ready for the conference. The teams of the ANC are in the provinces dealing with those who are having appeals and objections. And we say to them, once you listen and you make a determination that branch X must rerun, take that decision on the spot and direct that branch on the spot to go and rerun its PGM. That is working well for us because we're not going to have hangover. What are we going to do with disputes? We're dealing with the disputes as the BGMs are run.
We now cross over to our reporter, Sindisiwe Twala. Sindisiwe, a warm welcome to you. Now, today you attended the briefing on the state of readiness of the ANC ahead of that elective conference, which was at Luthuli House. What were some of the key take-homes?
A very good day to you as well as the viewers. Some of the key take-homes coming back from the weekend's consultative conference that was called by the stalwarts and veterans. Gwede Mantashe came out vehemently saying that the consultative conference will not have any direct bearing. However, these particular stalwarts still have influence within the different spheres of the ANC, and that is the only way that those resolutions will be taken forth at the National Elective Conference. Furthermore, he also cited that it's all systems go for the National Elective Conference. Over 90.7% or 90.7% rather has been attained of the BGM's meetings that have been taking place, which is 20% higher than the expected threshold, which was 70%. But they are saying that they're granting yet another week for the mop-up or the finalization of these particular BGMs to be held. Just giving you quick figures, we know that Northern Cape has concluded its BGM meetings. Mpumalanga tailing shortly behind with 3 BGMs to be held. Northwest at 40, Gauteng 41, Western Cape 48, Eastern Cape 71, and KZN at 122 of 800 PGMs still to be held. He also said that for the PGMs, these are the provincial meetings to still be had. He said that they're giving it 2 weeks. Cut-off date is the 3rd of December for all of these to be held. We know that the different structures such as the Youth League, the Veterans League and so forth, and the Women's League all count as provinces. And he stated that the Women's League has come out, the Youth League has also endorsed, so they're waiting for all the other PGMs rather, to be held and conclude who they're endorsing. He also made a clear statement that he cannot pronounce on any slates, 2 leading slates, as the different PGMs have not been concluded. Only then will he be able to say who are the front runners.
Now, Cindy, beyond this, what do the SG have to say about Zimbabwe? Because we cannot ignore what has happened, at least on the southern region, pertaining to the president there's resignation.
The SG was quite diplomatic in his response to Zimbabwe, hailing Robert Mugabe, the former president of Zimbabwe, from yesterday to have been somebody who has contributed extensively to the liberation of that particular country. He also said that he's made great strides in Africa and he will also be recognized for that. When asked about his initial critiques over the years of Robert Mugabe and the declining economy of Zimbabwe, he said that we must just go do our own research on a particular contract that Robert Mugabe embarked on about 20 years ago. So it was quite interesting touch and go on what he was saying. Also said that the ANC is quite concerned, as this is their sister movement, ZANU-PF, that whatever resolutions rather are taken in Zimbabwe, like the coup that has taken place, he said outright that this is a coup, irrespective of what it's called, a soft coup, however, but it's a coup that colonizers unfortunately are celebrating because of this particular coup that has taken place. But he said that South Africans should let Zimbabweans deal with their internal squabbles and SADC should also intervene. But he did not criticize SADC, as extensively has been reported initially, of the role that SADC should play in this particular initiative, this particular issue rather, in Zimbabwe.
No, thank you very much, Cindy Siwa. Now, today in studio, we're joined by political analyst Zamo Madlala, and a bit later on, we'll be joined via Skype by Mbuso Tumbati. Welcome, Zamo.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Now, the SG there maintains that the elective conference rather, will go ahead as planned, but a number of people are saying, given the amount of court challenges that we're seeing, it might not happen.
Well, I think when we look at it in reality, and you look at the history of the ANC since it came from its unbanning, they've run 5 successful national elective conferences. Yes, from 2007, there's been generally splits shortly thereafter within the ANC, with particular factions or camps leaving the ANC to establish new political parties. But if you look at it, somehow the ANC has remained resilient throughout. So what I foresee is that this is just the wranglings and democracy. And yes, there are factions, but all the leaders are ultimately coming to the party. And where you will see the unity of the ANC is where all the presidential candidates come out and say, we should all unite behind whoever emerges at the conference.
But do you foresee that happening? Because many argue that these are seriously deep or fundamental divisions, that these people at this point differ on ideology. And as much as many say this is a nationalist movement, but it seems there are some fundamental differences at this point.
Well, it is true. But when you really look at it, the true marked difference is between the ANC and the SACP. And it's not really the ANC-SACP difference, it's difference between political personalities. In that, if you look at the actions that ultimately President Zuma executed in removing former Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande from his position, you can see that that's more the politics of individuals coming through now, because the SACP leader had called for the president to step down. So ultimately that will play itself out, and we'll only find out really thereafter that do these alliances remain.
But the SACP could possibly differ on this being politics of individuals, because they could say for the longest time they've been calling for the president to step down because of a number of reasons. But we will touch back on that. Let's just quickly cross over to our reporter Nomusa Pungula, who's out in New Brighton in the Eastern Cape. Nomusa, a warm welcome to you. Now, what is the state of readiness there in the Eastern Cape pertaining to BGMs?
Well, good evening, Fundo, and good evening to our viewers. As much as there is some sort of relief from many branches for the fact that they've received this extension from the national office to now be able to reconvene or convene their BGMs, those that have not. But joining me to elaborate further in this ward that we are at, this branch, I'm joined by the chairperson of the ward, Mr. Luvuyo Mini. So we understand that your branch has had issues in terms of the quorum. What now are you going to do differently in terms of making sure that your BGM sits and collates? And what do you think, or how do you feel about this extension given by the national office?
Okay. Afternoon. Firstly, let me indicate to you that I'm with my executive committee members, some of them, and also our volunteers. You caught us by surprise because we are just coming from our door-to-door campaign in terms of engaging with our members within the branch so that we prepare them for the coming BGM, which is on Thursday at 4 o'clock. Let me be honest by saying we're so much appreciating the olive branch that we've been extended by the NEC, because you would find that some of the branches, even within the metro, didn't have the extended time. So now when it has been extended, we're so much appreciative of that. And we want to work so hard as a branch to make it happen on Thursday.
As you have said that you just came from a door-to-door campaign, understanding that perhaps you were trying to convince and persuade all your members in this branch to make sure that they come on time so that your meeting collates and sit. How do you feel about today? Is there a positive response?
There's been an overwhelming response in all those VDs that we attended to today. People are so eager. People can't wait for Thursday. But tomorrow, because we've got 6 VDs in our ward, we will be also targeting the other 3 VDs tomorrow, so that we know that at least the hard work we have done it for the 2 days in preparing for Friday.
Well, thank you so much, sir. That was the chairperson of this branch, Luvuyo Mini, just explaining how prepared they are now for this reconvening of their BGM, because you understand, Fundo, that not only are the non-convening or the not meeting the quorum issue was actually the one that was preventing them from sitting their BGM, but also there are other branches that had to put in appeals. So we hope that by the time this new deadline that has been set come, the Eastern Cape as a whole would have reached the 100% of BGM sitting, because we also understand that indeed they are now currently dealing with the appeals that have been put forth to them. But we also hope that those that are going to sit now, they are not going to come out with some appeals that need to be lodged in terms of maybe discrepancies. We hope that everything will go according to the law or the rules of the ANC or the guidelines of the BGM, so that everyone goes to the conference happy and make sure that they vote for their preferred candidates come the December conference in Mfundo.
Nomusa, thank you very much for that update. We now cross over to our reporter, Tsiamo Mautupadi, who's out in the northwest. Tsiamo, a warm welcome to you. Can you just take us through the readiness of the northwest with, in terms of concluding their BGMs?
Hi, good afternoon to you, Nomfundo, and to the viewers at home. At this point in time, we are actually in the Mafikeng, and we are right now hearing that Mafikeng is actually as ready as it can be. And with me, I have my guest, Dr. Dakota. And Doctor, can you please briefly give me the statistics on what is going on in the Northwest Province with the preparations in branches?
No, thank you very much. I'm Comrade Dakota Lehoete. As it is now, out of the 352 branches of the ANC in the province expected to join the 54th National Conference, so far we are done with 334, awaiting its 18. But out of that 18, 9
are from the dispute resolution mechanism that we have as the African National Congress. 9 out of 18 is reruns. We are only left with 9 branches, if I have to be systematic, but unfortunately that there are processes and that we need to follow, and so far it's 18. We hope that particular 18 will complete it come Saturday, the 25th of November, as the final cut-off date that the head office has imposed on us.
All right, thank you there, Mr. Dakota Logoete, the provincial secretary in the Northwest Province. While you heard that there's only 9 branches that are left to conclude with the BGMs, and at this point in time, it's back to you in studio.
Much at Siamo. Now, Zamo, your take, it seems on the administrative front, everything is running smoothly pertaining to the ANC. But again, there's still a lot of challenges when we talk about litigation, especially in the Eastern Cape. Yesterday, they were in court. The proceedings were very brief, but nevertheless, that disgruntled grouping is forging ahead with its court application to have that PEC nullified.
Well, I believe with the Eastern Cape, even when you take an example and you look at that particular branch, my immediate assessment would say that that is a branch that is not dominated by either faction. That's why you could see some of Siyavuma t-shirts, meaning that the other faction is what's not showing up. So regardless of what they do, if the other faction does not come up to give them the numbers to get to 50+1, they are not going to create, they're not going to be nominating. So part of this is just plain politics. And at branch level, politics gets down to that basic. In KZN, as you are seeing 122 branches not having said, it's part because there are those elements that are against, and they are playing basic politics by ensuring that the branch does not create, and if the branch does not create, it cannot sit, so it means it can't nominate, meaning it can't send candidates.
But then that talks of the power, or at least the influence of the PEC, because it's interesting to note that in KZN, though the PEC's position is in support of NDZ, and now most of the branches that haven't sat are those that are not in support of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And in the Eastern Cape, we've also had some issues where those that are saying they didn't manage to sit are actually in contrast or not in line with the PEC there, which is in support of Cyril Ramaphosa. So clearly those are the politics.
That's the reality.
Quite unfortunate. Let's welcome political analyst Mbuso Tubati, who joins us via Skype. Mbuso, your take on the dynamics, at least in the Eastern Cape, with the litigation, that it seems those disgruntled members are forging ahead.
Hi, Fundo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite clearly.
Hello?
Yes, Mbuso, I can hear you quite clearly.
Fundo,
you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mbuso, we can hear you. It seems we're having trouble there with Mbuso. But beyond this, Zamo, if we had to talk about the assertion, or at least the position of Jackson Mthembu, he's talking about the president having to resign. Whomever goes on to win, they say for the sake of unity, they've got to push the president to resign. But many now say, what happened when they were in Parliament? He led that caucus and he opposed that motion of no confidence against the president. But now later he goes on to say he wants him to resign. Can you talk to us about the politics of that?
Well, at the end of it, what the politics of that is quite simply this. By the end of December, President Zuma will no longer be the president of the ANC, which therefore means he can be recalled and you no longer have an issue of 2 centers of power. So that is the politics that Jackson Mthembu is really talking to. At the time, it would have been political suicide for the ANC to allow that motion to have gone on in the way the opposition was proposing it. Because it would have meant that the entire ANC had to vacate. They would have had to call in new elections. Whilst they're in the process of trying to elect new leadership, it would have just been dead stupid politics.
But then if you talk political suicide, and we remember the ANC and what they stood for, that wouldn't many in society have expected them to vote with that motion of no confidence in that instance, particularly him, that if he's going to assume that moral high ground at this point, that perhaps he should have voted with the others and voted for that motion against the president and not say, we're playing politics here. We want to have the president recalled, but on our terms. This cannot be initiated by anybody else but the ANC. Is that okay, socially?
Well, they did attempt it and it was defeated in the NEC. They did it and it was defeated. So politically, the president has always won where it matters. And that's the reality of the politics. Now, after December, the president will no longer have as much control of the NEC. And depending on how the entire NEC is structured, not really who the president is. Of course, who the president is and the general top 6 or top 8 or whatever it's going to become, and the National Working Committee does matter. But ultimately, it is the entire NEC that would make a decision to recall the president. And that is how the NEC would go about it if the president does not resign by his own choosing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, Mbuso, let's attempt to get him back on the line. Mbuso, your take on Jackson Mthembu's utterances or position that the president needs to resign after the elective conference?
Well, the two sides of the coin, Mfundo, I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
No, we certainly can. You can go ahead.
Yes. What was the question again, Mfundo?
Mbuso, the question is, what is your position on Mr. Mthembu's utterances that the president needs to resign beyond the elective conference?
Well, that is a very tricky one, Mfundo. It depends on the reasons why Mr. Mthembu suggests that the president should leave office post-December conference of the ANC. But generally, that is a very tricky situation because it creates a culture of uncertainty. Remember that we have had a similar situation in the past. After the 2007 conference of the ANC, President Thabo Mbeki was then asked to leave office, or he was recalled after a new leadership of the ANC was elected. And if we continue on that trend, we may find the ANC may find itself in a very awkward situation where it happens not to continuously build itself on the basis of who it wants to lead the state and who it wants to lead the organization. Precisely, it is possible to have two leaders, one leading the organization and the one leading the state. After all, the leader of the state from this political party takes instruction or a mandate from the ruling party. So there is surely nothing wrong with the president continuing as president of the country after the December conference of the ANC. So I do not see a problem why there is a need to recall the president, unless they recall the president now with solid reasons as to why the president must be recalled. But mine is that it is possible to have one president of the organization and another one.
An interesting view there that Mbuso Tumbati has, that we could have two centers of power. But on to other news. ANC Treasurer General and presidential candidate Zweli Mkhize says the ANC must reject the winner-takes-all approach at the December conference. Mkhize says candidates should be prepared to take leadership responsibility or be led by others. In the end, the ANC must emerge united behind whoever it chooses. Now let's listen to a brief interview Mkhize had with our reporter Patiswa Mfuyo.
Talking about unity, do you think with everything that's happening in the moment, that is it possible? Are we going to say united ANC going to 2019?
Firstly, I'm very encouraged because we raised the issue of unity. As I was moving around talking about issue of unity, I was encouraged to see that all the candidates are raising the issue of unity, at least from the point of view of the messaging. It's a very, very important message because unity is a foundation on which the ANC was actually founded. And so it becomes important to say that we must keep the ANC united. But we need to move the next step further. How do we make sure that unity in action now happens? This is why I'm saying we're calling for engagement of everybody, so that we don't have firm fixed slates, but we've got people who are interacting and looking at what is it that's going to be the best package for the ANC leadership as we move forward. We need the ANC to try an effort to unite before conference, so that when we're in conference, we must also keep in mind that we must keep this ANC united, and after the conference, the ANC must continue to be united, not amongst itself, but also to be united with the rest of South Africans who must accept that the ANC is here to serve society, that the ANC must be united around the challenges that are facing society, the problems of crime, women abuse, the problems of health of our people, good education, good quality education, a good economy, fighting unemployment, fighting poverty. If we unite around all of these issues, then it doesn't matter who's a leader. Well, it doesn't matter what happens. What is important is that we're all united around what's going to uplift all our people, and that uplifting of our people is what's going to make people to trust the ANC, to have confidence in the African National Congress, and that when we go to elections, we're simply reflecting our people's trust in the African National Congress.
Talking about elections, they seem like, if you listen to the general feel of people on the ground, they seem to have lost hope in the ANC. Do you think that the ANC will be able to revive itself before 2019?
Certainly. I think that the ANC has got a good chance of reviving itself and reigniting the confidence. That's why I insist that we need to talk unity before the conference, unity during conference and after. But the issue is about what is the ANC doing about the plight of our people. Is the ANC able to fight poverty? Is the ANC able to fight crime? Is the ANC able to fight drugs? Is the ANC able to deal with the education problems of the youth and of the students? All of these issues are what people want to hear the ANC talk about. We need to stop the issues of infighting and talking too much about internal issues, but focusing on what is good for South Africa and for the South Africans in general. That's what's going to make people feel that the ANC needs to be given enough support to win the elections, and I believe that we can do it.
And now, just lastly, Dr. Mkhize, we've just seen President of Zimbabwe stepping down yesterday. What lessons do you think, as South African, we can take out of what has happened in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think the main issue between us and Zimbabwe, which is different, is that in the African National Congress, the term that the leader will spend as a president of the organization is limited, and so there's always a departure date. In terms of government, a president of the state president is also limited to a certain number, 2 terms, and therefore there's a departure date. So the fact that there's a departure date actually offers an opportunity for us to renew our leadership, unlike the situation in Zimbabwe. I think that President Zimbabwe has done a brilliant job, leading the country, but I think the term that he has spent has been very long, and that the economy has suffered. Sometimes change in leadership helps us to change ideas, and so I think there are lessons at that kind of level, and we are happy for the people of Zimbabwe that there has been no violence, and that everything has happened, and that there's a change of leadership at last. When we have a leadership whose departure date is unknown, it really creates a lot of stress. But in a situation where we know that we have got regular elections and we can change leaders, I think it makes a lot of difference. And so for us, we need to keep to the kind of constitution that we have, both in terms of the party leadership, change of leadership in the party and change of leadership in government, because that is important to ensure accountability, to ensure that our people are able to impact on the organization in power.
Some interesting views there from the ANC's Treasurer General, certainly worth a broader discussion. But on to today's poll question. Now, the question is, can dialogue with business bring about radical economic transformation? We just want answers, yes or no. Do send your answers to our media platforms that appear on your screen now. And that's where we leave it. Until next time.